There's something unsettling about a mountain that looks like it was designed to kill you. Most peaks rise from the earth in gradual slopes, their danger hidden beneath snow and stone. But the Matterhorn doesn't hide anything. It announces itself. A 60-million-year-old pyramid of rock jutting nearly 15,000 feet into the sky. Its four faces so steep, they seem to dare you to try. Straddling the border between Switzerland and Italy, it's arguably the most recognizable mountain on the planet, immortalized on the chocolate wrappers, postcards, and the dreams of climbers who've never set foot in the Alps. But that iconic silhouette comes with a body count. Every year, somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 people attempt to reach the Matterhorn summit. Fewer than half succeed, and for some, over 500 since records began, the mountain became their grave. That's more deaths than Everest, K2, and Annapurna in certain decades. Not because the Matterhorn is the tallest or the most remote, but because it's deceptively accessible. A scenic train ride from Zurich, a cozy mountain hut with a viewing terrace, defined hiking paths that make the approach feel almost casual, and then the climb itself, where the real Matterhorn reveals what it actually is. The first successful ascent in 1865 was supposed to mark a triumph, the final conquest of the Golden Age of Alpinism. Instead, it ended in disaster. Edward Whymper and his team of 7 reached the peak, but 4 of them never made it back down. The mountain claimed its first victims on the very day humans claimed victory over it. That story set the tone for everything that followed. Today, the Matterhorn kills an average of 12 climbers per year. Some fall, some are struck by rockfall, some simply succumb to exhaustion on the descent, their bodies giving out just hours after standing on top of the world. This is the story of why Europe's most beautiful mountain is also its most deadly, and why, despite everything, people keep coming back. Most deadly mountains make you work just to reach them. K2 requires weeks of trekking through remote Pakistani wilderness. Annapurna demands navigating some of the most treacherous terrain in the Himalayas before you even start climbing. These approaches act as filters, weeding out anyone who isn't serious, anyone who hasn't trained for years, anyone who doesn't belong. The Matterhorn does the opposite. It rolls out a red carpet. Your journey begins in Zermatt, a postcard-perfect Swiss village nestled in a valley at the foot of the mountain. To get there, you simply board a train in Zurich. 3.5 hours later, after winding through some of the most stunning alpine scenery on Earth, you step off onto cobblestone streets. No cars allowed here. Electric taxis and horse-drawn carriages glide past boutique hotels and fondue restaurants. The air smells like pine and fresh bread. It feels like a vacation, and everywhere you look, there it is. The Matterhorn. Looming over the village like a monument, impossible to ignore. For some climbers, that constant presence builds anticipation. For others, it quietly builds dread. Zermatt is home to around 6,000 permanent residents, but it hosts tens of thousands of visitors every year. Skiers, hikers, tourists who just want to see the famous peak up close. The town has embraced its identity as a gateway to the mountain. They even call it Matterhorn Ski Paradise. The day before your climb, you leave the village and take the Gornergrat Railway, the highest open-air railway in all of Europe, or a cable car that whisks you effortlessly upward. From there, it's a 2-hour hike to the Hernley Hut. The path is well marked, almost impossible to get lost on. You're walking toward the only massive pyramid in your field of vision. Other hikers pass you constantly. Some aren't even planning to climb. They just want photos. The Hernley Hut opened in 1880 with just 17 beds. Today it holds 130. For about 150 Swiss francs a night, roughly $170, you get dinner, breakfast, and a viewing terrace with one of the most spectacular mountain panoramas anywhere on the planet. It feels civilized, comfortable even, and if something goes wrong, Air Zermatt operates one of the most elite aerial rescue teams in the world. Salaried paramedics and clinicians on standby, ready to pluck injured climbers off the mountain at a moment's notice. Everything about this approach whispers that you're in good hands, that the Matterhorn is manageable, that thousands of people do this every year, and so can you. That's the trap. Because the Matterhorn's accessibility doesn't filter anyone out. It invites everyone in. Weekend warriors with minimal experience, tourists who underestimate what's coming, People who mistake a well-maintained trail and a cozy hut for evidence that the mountain itself will be forgiving. It won't be. The comfort ends at the Hernley Hut. Beyond that door, in the darkness of 4 a.m., the real Matterhorn is waiting. The Matterhorn stands at 4,478 meters. That's 14,692 feet of vertical rock and ice. It's not the tallest peak in the Swiss Alps, and it's nowhere near the height of Himalayan giants like Everest or K2. But don't let that fool you. This mountain has killed more people per attempt than most of its taller cousins, and it starts with the air. Above 2,500 meters, your body enters a danger zone. The oxygen thins. Your lungs work harder for less. For most people, this begins as acute mountain sickness, headaches, nausea, fatigue, annoying but manageable. But if you push too hard, too fast, it can escalate into something far worse. High-altitude pulmonary edema, where fluid floods your lungs, or high-altitude cerebral edema, where your brain begins to swell inside your skull. Both can kill you within hours. This is why acclimatization matters. Spending time in Zermatt at 1,608 meters, then a night at the Hernley Hut at 3,260 meters allows your body to adjust before pushing toward the summit. Skip this process, rush the timeline, and the altitude will punish you long before the mountain does. But altitude is predictable, weather is not. Most dangerous peaks sit within clusters of surrounding mountains. The Matterhorn stands alone. Isolated on the main alpine watershed, it creates its own meteorological chaos. As air masses collide against its steep faces, they are forced rapidly upward, cooling as they rise. Clouds form out of nowhere. Rain materializes from clear skies. You've seen the photos, sunny valleys below, while the Matterhorn wears a crown of swirling mist. That mist can turn a straightforward climb into a death sentence. Visibility drops to nothing. Routes disappear. Climbers lose their bearings on exposed ridges, where a single wrong step means a 1,000-foot fall. This is why every serious attempt begins before dawn. Summit early, descend early, and pray the weather holds. Then there's the danger you cannot outrun: rockfall. The Matterhorn is what geologists call a glacial horn, 4 brutally steep faces carved by ancient ice. Those slopes aren't just steep, they're unstable. The mountain is composed largely of sedimentary rock, which fractures more easily than the ignite rock found on other peaks. Gravity pulls constantly at every loose fragment, and it's getting worse. Climate change is accelerating the destruction. Permafrost that once held the mountain together is melting. Snow that used to blanket dangerous sections now exposes jagged, unstable terrain. Water seeps into cracks during warmer days, freezes overnight, expands, and splits the rock apart. The cycle repeats endlessly. Rockfall on the Matterhorn isn't a possibility. It's a certainty. The only question is whether you're in its path when it happens. Stones the size of fists. Boulders the size of cars. They come without warning, triggered by temperature shifts, by vibrations, by nothing at all. You can train for altitude. You can check forecasts for weather. But rockfall, you can only hope. The Matterhorn's natural dangers would be challenging enough on their own. The altitude, the weather, the constant threat of rockfall. But there's another factor that transforms this mountain from difficult to deadly. People. Lots of them. Every year, somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 climbers attempt to reach the summit. That might not sound like much spread across 12 months, but the Matterhorn doesn't work that way. The climbing season is short, weather windows are narrow, and when conditions align, everyone moves at once. On a single day with optimal weather, up to 300 people might attempt the summit simultaneously. Picture that for a moment. 300 climbers, most taking the exact same route up the Hernley Ridge, all trying to reach the top and get back down before the weather turns. The mountain becomes a vertical traffic jam. And these aren't all elite alpinists. The Matterhorn's accessibility attracts climbers of wildly varying skill levels. Seasoned mountaineers share fixed ropes with weekend adventurers who've never climbed anything higher than a gym wall. Some have trained for years. Others signed up for a guided expedition on a whim, underestimating what the brochure photos didn't show. The result is chaos in slow motion. Narrow ridges become bottlenecks. Faster climbers get stuck behind slower ones with nowhere to pass. People cluster at anchor points, waiting their turn to clip into fixed ropes while exposure drops away thousands of feet on either side. Tensions rise, patience frays, and everyone is burning precious time and energy while the weather window slowly closes. Then there's the rockfall problem, made worse by the crowds. Remember those unstable slopes? Every climber ascending above you is a potential trigger. A misplaced boot, a grabbed handhold that comes loose, a moment of carelessness from someone you've never met. Suddenly, rocks are raining down on the line of climbers below. You can do everything right and still get hit by someone else's mistake. The psychological toll compounds the physical danger. You're exhausted, hypoxic, clinging to a ridge while strangers jostle past you. Anxiety spikes, focus slips, and on the Matterhorn, a single lapse in concentration can be fatal. Swiss authorities have recognized the problem. They've eliminated camping outside the Hernley hut and limited its capacity, attempting to reduce the number of daily climbers by as much as a third. But demand hasn't decreased. The mountain's iconic status keeps drawing people in, and no amount of regulation can fully control how many decide to try. This is the Matterhorn's cruel paradox. The same beauty and accessibility that make it irresistible are precisely what make it so dangerous. K2 and Annapurna filter out casual climbers through sheer remoteness. The Matterhorn welcomes everyone, then reveals its true nature only after you're committed. By the time you realize you're in over your head, you're already 4,000 meters up, surrounded by strangers, with nowhere to go but forward or down, the hard way. The alarm sounds at 3:30 a.m. Outside the Hernley hut, the Matterhorn is a black silhouette against a sky full of stars. Headlamps flicker to life across the dormitory. Climbers move quietly, checking harnesses, tightening boots, eating whatever breakfast their nervous stomachs will accept. By 4 a.m., the first group step into the darkness. This is the Hernley Ridge, the northeast route, considered the easiest path to the summit. Easier, though, is relative. 4 of the 7 climbers who first conquered this mountain in 1865 died on this exact route. The ridge has claimed hundreds since. The climb begins with a well-marked path across mixed terrain. Rock and scree, manageable but demanding. Your legs find a rhythm. Your breathing settles into the thin air. In the beam of your headlamp, the road ahead seems almost reasonable. Then the ridge steepens. The lower sections involve scrambling over increasingly technical rock. Fixed ropes appear, anchored into the mountain for the most exposed passages. You clip in, trust the hardware, and keep moving. The sky begins to lighten. Below you, the lights of Zermatt glitter like scattered embers. Roughly halfway up, at 4,003 meters, you pass the Solvay hut, a tiny emergency shelter built in 1917, clinging to the ridge like an afterthought. It exists for one purpose only: saving lives when everything goes wrong. You don't stop. Stopping means cooling down, stiffening up, losing momentum. Above the Solvay, the real Matterhorn reveals itself. The ridge narrows dramatically. Exposure increases with every step. To your left, a sheer drop into Italy. To your right, Switzerland falls away just as steeply. The rock is cold under your gloves. Fixed ropes and metal ladders appear more frequently now, guiding you through sections where a slip would be unsurvivable. Your lungs burn. Your legs ache. Every movement requires concentration. You're above 4,000 meters, hypoxic, exhausted, and acutely aware that rocks could break loose at any moment. And then, after 4 or 5 hours of climbing, you're there. The summit of the Matterhorn is smaller than most people imagine. A narrow crest of rock with barely enough room to stand. There's little to hold on to. The wind cuts through every layer. But for a few brief minutes, you're on top of one of the most iconic mountains on Earth. Switzerland stretches north. Italy sprawls south. France shimmers in the distance. It's beautiful, and it's a trap. Because now comes the descent. 5 to 6 hours back down, everything you just climbed. Except now you're tired. Your goal is achieved. Your adrenaline is fading. Your mind wants to relax even as the mountain demands more focus than ever. This is when the Matterhorn collects its toll. 80% of mountaineering accidents happen on descent. Fatigue dulls reflexes. Loose rock shifts under weary boots. The same fixed ropes that helped you up now require careful navigation down. Edward Whymper's team didn't fall while ascending. They fell going home. The mountain's final lesson is simple. Reaching the summit is optional. Getting down is mandatory. Since that first fatal descent in 1865, the Matterhorn has claimed over 500 lives. That number keeps growing. Every year, despite the warnings, despite the statistics, despite the stories of those who never came home, thousands of climbers still make the journey to Zermatt. They still board the train, still hike to the hut, still set their alarms for 4 a.m., and still begin the climb toward that iconic pyramid in the pre-dawn darkness. Some of them won't come back down. It's tempting to call them reckless, to wonder why anyone would risk their life for a view, for a photograph, for the bragging rights of standing on a summit. But that misses something essential about the Matterhorn and the people drawn to it. This mountain doesn't just test physical endurance. It tests judgment, humility, and the ability to recognize when the dream isn't worth dying for. Some climbers turn back halfway up when the weather shifts. Some never make it past the Hernley hut once they see the crowds. Those aren't failures. Those are the ones who understood. The Matterhorn will always be beautiful. That razor-sharp silhouette will keep appearing on postcards and chocolate bars and travel documentaries for generations to come. And every time someone sees it, some small percentage of them will feel that pull, the irrational, irresistible urge to stand on top of it. That's the mountain's true danger. Not just the rockfall or the weather or the crowds. It's the seduction, the way it makes you believe you're ready when you're not. The way it punishes overconfidence with absolute finality. Edward Whymper, the man who first conquered the Matterhorn and watched 4 of his companions fall to their deaths on the way down, spent the rest of his life haunted by that day. He later wrote, "The Matterhorn doesn't care about your courage. It only cares whether you're careful. And sometimes, even that isn't enough."